Modern life often feels like a storm of endless notifications and unexpected crises. 2,000 years ago, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius observed, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The ancient Stoics did not just endure chaos. They mastered it through a series of powerful mental exercises. This video reveals their secret visualizations, a practical toolkit for building unshakable resilience. You will learn specific techniques to disarm anxiety and face loss with profound calm. We will uncover how imagining the worst can make you fearless and why contemplating the cosmos shrinks your troubles. How do you currently navigate the chaos in your own life? How do you mentally prepare for a day that might go terribly wrong? The ancient Stoics had a powerful answer, a technique they called Premeditatio Malorum, which translates to the premeditation of evils. This was not an exercise in pessimism or fostering a bleak outlook. Instead, it was a deliberate and strategic form of mental training. The goal was to visualize potential adversity in vivid detail before it ever had a chance to occur. By repeatedly walking through worst-case scenarios in your mind, you strip them of their shock value and emotional power. You are essentially inoculating your psyche against future chaos. The Stoic philosopher Seneca powerfully captured the essence of this practice. He wrote that we should anticipate that all things of fortune will leave us, and we will be far more grateful for them while they are present. By contemplating the potential loss of what we value, we learn to hold it more lightly, appreciating it without being devastated by its absence. Imagine applying this to a modern source of anxiety, like an important job interview. Instead of just hoping for the best, you would spend time truly visualizing the possibility of rejection. You would picture yourself hearing the news, feeling the initial sting of disappointment, and then calmly moving forward with your plan to apply for other positions. This mental rehearsal does not make the rejection happen. It makes you unbreakable if it does. So, where in your own life could this practice bring you more peace? What single uncertainty, if you faced it with this fearless foresight, would lose its grip on you? Our daily struggles can feel all-consuming when we are standing right in the middle of them. Every minor inconvenience looms large, and every personal conflict seems like the center of the universe. The Stoics had a powerful antidote for this myopic view, a visualization they called the view from above. This practice involves mentally rising above your immediate situation and contemplating the vastness of the cosmos. It is a conscious effort to see your life from a distant, almost celestial perspective. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius was a devoted practitioner of this technique. In his private writings, he repeatedly instructed himself to take this cosmic viewpoint. He wrote, "You can rid yourself of many useless things among those that disturb you, for they lie entirely in your imagination. You will immediately gain vast room by embracing the whole universe in your mind and contemplating the eternity of time." He would visualize himself looking down from a great height, first upon his own city, then upon the entire earth, seeing it as a mere dot, and finally upon the immensity of the cosmos. From that vantage point, the bustling markets, the political squabbles, even his own imperial troubles, shrank to utter insignificance. This was not about dismissing life as meaningless, but about realizing that our personal dramas are just one tiny thread in an immense and ancient tapestry. Think of a recent argument that felt incredibly important in the moment. Now, try to view that same scene from the perspective of an observer floating in the quiet void of space. Look down upon the spinning blue and white marble of Earth. Can you even see the city? Can you make out the street, the building, the room where that conflict is happening? From this distance, the sharp words and heated emotions vanish into the serene silence of the universe. The problem has not disappeared, but its power to consume you has been dramatically reduced. This shift in perspective cultivates a profound sense of humility and peace. The next time you feel overwhelmed by a problem, big or small, try this exercise for just 60 seconds. Close your eyes and rise above it all. Notice how the weight of the issue seems to lighten when placed against the backdrop of infinity. What if everything that happens to you, good or bad, was exactly what you needed? This is the radical heart of the Stoic principle known as Amor Fati, a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. It moves far beyond mere acceptance of life's inevitable chaos and loss. It is an active, deliberate practice of visualizing and then embracing every single event as not only necessary but ultimately beneficial for your growth. The Stoics did not see this as a passive surrender to destiny. It was a powerful act of mental reframing, a visualization where you train yourself to see the hidden lesson, the unexpected strength, or the new path that every circumstance, especially the difficult ones, offers you. The philosopher Epictetus, born into slavery and intimately familiar with suffering, gave this idea its most potent command. He instructed his students to seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do happen, and your life will be serene. Imagine welcoming every single occurrence, from a minor inconvenience to a profound loss, as if you yourself had chosen it for your own benefit. This is the visualization that builds unshakable resilience. Consider the historical example of the philosopher Musonius Rufus, who was exiled to a barren island. Instead of crumbling in self-pity, he reportedly saw it as an opportunity. He visualized the isolation not as a punishment, but as a perfect laboratory to practice his philosophy undisturbed, turning his exile into a legendary chapter of Stoic fortitude. In a modern context, imagine a devastating career setback, a project you poured your heart into that ultimately fails. The conventional reaction might be anger, despair, or a feeling of worthlessness. But through the lens of Amor Fati, you would actively visualize this failure as a crucial redirection. Perhaps it closed a door that was not aligned with your true path, forcing you to develop new skills you would have never otherwise cultivated, or leading you to a better opportunity that was waiting just out of view. This is not about pretending the pain does not exist. It is about changing your relationship with the pain, seeing it as the raw material for building a stronger self. So bring to mind a recent difficulty you faced, something that felt like a pure misfortune. Now challenge yourself to brainstorm. How could you practice seeing that event through the lens of Amor Fati? What hidden gift, however small, might be buried within that experience, waiting for you to acknowledge it? The single most important distinction in Stoicism is between what we can and cannot control. This principle, known as the Dichotomy of Control, is the foundation upon which all other Stoic practices are built. It is not merely a philosophical idea to be understood, but a daily visualization to be performed. The Stoics taught us to see our own mind as an inner citadel, a fortress of reason that remains unshaken by the chaos swirling outside its walls. Your thoughts, your judgments, your desires, and your actions, these are the things that lie within your power. Everything else, from the weather to the opinions of others, from your health to your wealth, ultimately falls outside of it. The philosopher Epictetus began his entire teaching with this exact division. He stated clearly, some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. Our opinions are up to us, our impulses, desires, aversions. Our bodies are not up to us, our property, our reputations, our public offices. This is the mental sorting mechanism that creates profound peace. When you master this visualization, you stop wasting energy fighting storms you cannot calm and instead focus entirely on steering your own ship. Consider a moment you have almost certainly experienced, being stuck in a massive traffic jam. The situation itself, the red taillights stretching to the horizon, the stalled car ahead, the fact that you will be late, these are all outside your control. You can honk, you can fume, you can scream at the dashboard, but none of that will clear the road. The visualization of the inner citadel asks you to draw a bright, clear line between that external chaos and your internal response. Within your control is your breath, your decision to put on some calming music, your choice to use the time to listen to an audiobook or simply observe your surroundings without judgment. Your reaction is the only thing you truly command. By repeatedly practicing this mental separation, you build resilience. You learn to retreat into your citadel when the world becomes loud and demanding, finding a center of calm that cannot be disturbed by external events. So take a quiet moment now and bring to mind 3 things that are currently bothering you. Write them down if you can. Now, for each one, ask yourself this simple, powerful question. Is this within my control, or is it outside of it? Merely categorizing your anxieties in this way begins the process of disarming them, returning your power to where it has always resided, within the unassailable walls of your own mind. We often treat death as a distant, unspeakable horror, something to be pushed to the farthest corners of our minds. The Stoics proposed the opposite. They argued that keeping the reality of our own mortality at the forefront of our consciousness is the ultimate key to living a vibrant and meaningful life. This practice is known as Memento Mori, a Latin phrase that means remember you must die. It is not an exercise in morbid fear, but a powerful visualization designed to sharpen your priorities. By regularly contemplating the finite nature of your existence, you cut through the noise of petty concerns and superficial desires. The fear of losing your possessions, your status, or even the approval of others begins to fade when held against the ultimate, unavoidable truth of your own end. What remains is a clarified vision of what is truly important, a profound gratitude for the present moment, and a powerful urgency to act with virtue right now. The Stoic philosopher Seneca captured this perfectly in a letter to his friend. He wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life every day is never short of time." Seneca is telling us that visualizing the end is what makes the middle so rich and purposeful. There is a famous story of a Roman general enjoying a triumphal parade. As he rode through the cheering crowds, basking in his greatest glory, a servant stood behind him, whispering a constant reminder in his ear. The servant did not chant praises or list his victories. He simply whispered, "Memento Mori, remember that you will die." This was not meant to spoil the celebration, but to ground the general in reality, to prevent his head from swelling with pride, and to remind him that all this glory, like life itself, is fleeting and temporary. In a modern context, think of a near miss you or someone you know has experienced a car accident avoided by a fraction of a second. In the immediate, heart-pounding aftermath, what happens? The trivial stresses of the day, the argument you were having, the work deadline you were worrying about, all of it instantly vanishes. What surfaces with crystal clarity is the people you love, the things you truly value, and the projects you have been putting off. This intense, immediate shift in perspective is the essence of Memento Mori. The practice is about voluntarily invoking that clarity without needing a crisis to trigger it. So take this question with you for the rest of your day. If you carried the conscious, gentle awareness that your time is profoundly limited, what one thing would you do differently before the sun sets? Would you finally have that difficult conversation? Would you spend an extra hour with someone you care about? Or would you simply allow yourself to fully be present in a single, beautiful moment you might otherwise have rushed through? You set a goal with fierce determination, pouring all your energy into achieving it, only to have the outcome crumble despite your best efforts. The disappointment can feel crushing, as if all that effort was wasted. The Stoics had a brilliant mental tool for exactly this struggle, a practice known as the reserve clause. This is a visualization of detached engagement, where you learn to hold two thoughts in your mind at once, your wholehearted effort and your serene acceptance of whatever result may come. You commit to the action completely, while simultaneously visualizing and making peace with the reality that forces beyond your control might intervene. It is the art of striving without demanding. The philosopher Epictetus gave clear instructions on this. He advised his students to undertake a task while quietly adding the phrase, "fate permitting," to their intention. He wrote, when you are going to perform an act, remind yourself what nature the act is. If you are going to bathe, picture what happens in the bath, some people splashing, others jostling, some being insulting. And you will undertake the thing more securely if you say to yourself from the start, "I want to bathe and to keep my will in harmony with nature." This is not a recipe for half-hearted effort. It is a formula for full engagement without the destructive attachment to a single, fixed outcome. Think of a dedicated athlete training for a major race. They visualize their performance in minute detail, feeling the burn in their muscles, hearing the crowd, and pushing through the pain barrier. They give their absolute all. But a true Stoic competitor would also hold a second, parallel visualization. They would see themselves crossing the finish line first, yes, but they would also see the possibility of a rival having an exceptional day, of a sudden cramp, of a gust of wind at the wrong moment. By accepting these external possibilities in advance, they do not weaken their resolve. They strengthen it. They free themselves from the terror of failure, allowing them to perform with clarity and power, unburdened by the weight of a demanded result. The effort is theirs to own, the final placement is not. So bring to mind a goal you are actively pursuing right now, perhaps a project at work or a personal milestone. Now try silently adding the reserve clause to your intention. Say to yourself, "I will strive for this with all my heart, fate permitting." Feel how that simple mental addition changes the quality of your ambition. It does not diminish your drive, but it can release the underlying anxiety, allowing you to act with a newfound freedom and resilience. What if you could step outside of your angry or anxious thoughts and just look at them? This is the core of a powerful Stoic visualization known as cognitive distancing. It is the mental equivalent of hitting a pause button, creating a crucial moment of space between a triggering event and your reaction. In that quiet gap, you gain the power to see your initial impression not as an undeniable truth, but as a simple piece of data to be examined. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus gave us the fundamental rule that makes this practice so vital. He said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." Your anxiety is not the event itself, it is your interpretation of that event. Cognitive distancing is the tool that lets you separate the two. Imagine you receive a terse, critical email from a colleague. The raw, immediate impression might be a hot surge of anger and a feeling of being disrespected. Without cognitive distancing, that impression instantly becomes your reality, leading you to fire off a defensive and damaging reply. But with practice, you can learn to catch that impression before it consumes you. You visualize yourself taking that hot, buzzing feeling of anger and placing it on a table in front of you. You step back and look at it. You give it a name. This is the feeling of perceived disrespect. You observe it as if it were a curious object, noting its intensity, its texture, its weight. is this feeling based on a fact or an assumption? Is the email truly an attack, or could it be a poorly worded attempt at efficiency from a stressed person? By objectifying the emotion, you drain it of its compulsive power. You are no longer the anger, you are the observer of the anger. This shift is what allows for true choice. From that place of calm observation, you can then decide on a wise and virtuous response, perhaps choosing to wait an hour or to pick up the phone for a clarifying conversation instead of escalating the conflict. The next time you feel a sudden surge of fear or frustration, try this simple technique. Hit your mental pause button. Visualize taking that chaotic emotion and setting it down outside of yourself. Just for a moment, become the scientist studying a fascinating specimen. What do you notice about it when you look at it with calm, detached curiosity? What would the wisest, most virtuous version of you do in this situation? This question lies at the heart of another profound Stoic visualization, the practice of embodying the sage. The sage is the Stoic ideal of a perfectly rational and virtuous person, someone who navigates any circumstance with unshakable wisdom and calm. This exercise is not about chasing an impossible standard of perfection. It is about creating a mental model, a personal compass to guide your actions when emotions threaten to pull you off course. You are building a benchmark for your own conduct, a way to measure your progress not against others, but against your own highest potential. The goal is self-awareness and moral growth, not self-criticism. Marcus Aurelius constantly engaged in a form of this practice within the pages of his private journal. He would reflect on the specific qualities of people he admired, both living and dead, and then visualize how those virtues would manifest in his own life. He did not try to become those people, but he used their examples as a template to shape his own character. He wrote, "When you need encouragement, think of the qualities the people around you have." Nothing is as encouraging as when virtues are visibly embodied in the people around us. This is the sage visualization in action, using exemplary figures as a living reference for how to act with integrity, courage, and justice. To see how this works today, picture a young professional about to give a high-stakes presentation to a skeptical audience. Their heart is racing, and their mind is filled with fears of being judged or making a mistake. Instead of being consumed by this anxiety, they pause and invoke their inner sage. They mentally step into the shoes of a respected mentor they deeply admire, someone known for their poise and clarity under pressure. They ask themselves, how would my mentor walk into this room? How would they stand? What tone of voice would they use to convey respect and confidence, even when faced with tough questions? By visualizing this ideal, they are not pretending to be someone else. They are accessing the best parts of themselves, the virtues of calm and competence that already exist within them but are clouded by fear. This mental shift allows them to deliver the presentation not from a place of insecurity, but from a place of grounded strength. So, take a moment to define your own inner sage. What 3 qualities would this wisest version of you possess? Now, bring to mind a single challenge you are facing right now. Look at that situation through the eyes of your sage. From that higher perspective, what is the first, most virtuous step you could take? Feeling alone in your struggles can make any hardship twice as heavy. The ancient Stoics addressed this deep human pain with a profound visualization they called Sympatheia, the interconnectedness of all things. This concept invites you to see the entire cosmos not as a collection of separate, competing entities, but as a single, unified, living organism. You are not an isolated island battered by random storms. You are an integral, necessary part of a vast and rational whole. Visualizing this intricate web of relations fosters a powerful sense of belonging and dramatically reduces the sting of personal loss, because you come to understand that chaos is not a personal attack. It is simply part of the natural, universal process of change and renewal. Marcus Aurelius beautifully captured this idea in his Meditations. He wrote, "Always think of the universe as one living being with a single substance and a single soul. How all things act with one movement, how all things are the cooperating causes of all things that exist. Observe the spinning of the spindle, the connection of the threads, and the tension of the strings." He asks us to see ourselves as a limb of this cosmic body. When you stub your toe, your entire body feels the shock and rushes to aid the injured part. In the same way, the universe itself is responsive. Your personal losses and triumphs are felt within the greater whole because you are an inseparable part of its fabric. To make this tangible, think of a recent personal setback, perhaps a missed promotion or the end of a friendship. Now, try to visualize this event not as a solitary catastrophe, but as a single, dark thread in an immense and beautiful tapestry. From your perspective, lying right on top of that thread, it might look like an ugly mistake or a flaw. But if you could step back and see the entire tapestry from a distance, you would understand that very thread is essential. It provides contrast, depth, and definition to the brighter threads around it. It is necessary for the integrity and beauty of the whole pattern. Your setback is not meaningless. It is contributing something vital to the larger story of your life and your community, even if you cannot yet see what that is. So, bring to mind one specific difficulty you are navigating right now. Close your eyes for just a moment and try to see its role within the larger network of your existence. How might this challenge be strengthening a part of you that will later support someone else? How is it subtly redirecting your path toward connections or understandings you would have otherwise missed? Your mind has a front door, and thoughts are constantly knocking, demanding to be let in. Some are calm and rational, while others arrive shouting in panic or dripping with resentment. The ancient Stoics understood this constant mental traffic, and they developed a crucial practice to manage it, known as the Discipline of Assent. This is the art of visualizing and guarding the tiny, critical gap that exists between your first impression of an event and your final judgment about it. It is about becoming the conscious gatekeeper of your own mind, no longer a passive tenant letting any loud thought barge in and take over the house. Epictetus gave a powerful warning about this very process. He said, "Do not be carried away by the vividness of the impression, but say, 'Wait for me a little, O impression.' Allow me to see who you are and what you represent. Allow me to test you." This is the visualization of pausing at the threshold. When an impression knocks, you do not have to fling the door open immediately. You can peer through the peephole, ask a few questions, and decide if this particular thought is a welcome guest or one that will trash your inner peace. Imagine a common scenario. You receive a brief, blunt text message from a close friend that simply reads, "We need to talk." The initial, raw impression that crashes into your mind might be a wave of anxiety. It shouts a story of anger, of something you have done wrong, of impending conflict. Without the discipline of assent, that impression instantly gets your approval. You assent to its narrative, your heart starts racing, you begin drafting defensive replies in your head, and your entire mood plummets. But with this Stoic gatekeeping practice, you create a space. You notice the anxious impression knocking. You acknowledge its presence, but you do not grant it entry. You hold it at the door and test it. You ask, is this impression necessarily true? Could this message mean a dozen other things? Perhaps your friend needs your help, or they are simply in a hurry, or they want to share exciting news. By pausing to question the initial story, you reclaim your power to choose the narrative you will ultimately believe. Your reaction is no longer an automatic reflex, it becomes a deliberate decision. Think back to a moment in the last week when you had a sharp, impulsive reaction to something someone said or did. Replay that moment in your mind, but this time, insert a conscious pause right after the trigger. Visualize that heated impression as a frantic visitor at your mental doorstep. What would have happened if you had taken just 5 deep breaths and asked Epictetus's questions before you reacted? How might that simple act of guarded assent have changed the entire course of that interaction and preserved your own tranquility? Our world constantly whispers that we need more to be happy, but the Stoics answered with a radical quiet, a visualization of enough. They practiced seeing the present moment not as a stepping stone to some better future, but as a complete and sufficient ground for contentment. This is not passive resignation. It is an active mental exercise where you visually inventory the good that is already present and available to you right now, training your mind to find wealth in what you possess rather than poverty in what you lack. The philosopher Seneca cut to the heart of this practice when he wrote that true wealth is the poverty of desires. He was pointing to a profound shift in perspective. Contentment does not come from acquiring everything you want, but from learning to want and appreciate everything you already have. Your health, your capacity for reason, the beauty of the natural world outside your window, the simple fact of your breath, these are not small things. They are the fundamental elements of a good life, and they are often entirely within your grasp, obscured only by the clamor for more. Imagine you are sitting in your own home, feeling a vague sense of restlessness or discontent. The Stoic exercise would be to stop and perform a deliberate sufficiency scan. Let your eyes slowly move around the room. Notice the solid roof over your head, a basic but profound shelter. Acknowledge the clean water available from your tap, a luxury in much of the world. Feel the simple comfort of the chair you are sitting in. You are performing a visual inventory of present good, not to ignore life's real challenges, but to recalibrate your sense of scale and restore a baseline of tranquility. This practice directly counteracts the feeling of lack that modern life so expertly cultivates. The next time you feel that gnawing sense of wanting, of something being missing, pause for just 30 seconds. Look around you and mentally note 3 specific things in your immediate environment that you can be genuinely grateful for right now. It could be the warmth of a cup in your hands, the quiet hum of a working appliance, or the simple sight of a patch of sunlight on the floor. How does this simple act of visually acknowledging sufficiency change the texture of your desire? And what might you discover is already whole in your life when you stop focusing on what you assume is broken? The obstacle is the way. This famous Stoic phrase is more than a motivational slogan. It is a declaration of a profound mental alchemy. It describes the practice of actively visualizing any hindrance, not as a wall stopping your progress, but as the very raw material required to propel you forward. This is the art of transmuting leaden setbacks into golden opportunities, a deliberate reframing where you see the blockade as the path itself. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius captured this transformative power with a stunning image. He wrote, "The blazing fire makes flames and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. Just as a fire does not discriminate, consuming logs and debris alike to create greater light and heat, so too can our minds convert every single obstacle into fuel for our own growth." A political defeat, a personal failure, a sudden limitation, all of it can be thrown into the furnace of your will and turned into the flame of your resilience. Consider the historical figure of Cato the Younger, a staunch Stoic who repeatedly failed to prevent the rise of Julius Caesar and the fall of the Roman Republic. From a conventional standpoint, his life was a string of political disasters. Yet with each defeat, his resolve and his legendary integrity only grew stronger. His opponents did not break him, they tempered him. He used their opposition as the very fuel that forged his unwavering character, turning his failures into a timeless lesson on standing for principle against impossible odds. In a modern context, imagine a passionate entrepreneur whose first startup fails completely. The easy narrative is one of defeat and wasted time, but through the lens of this Stoic alchemy, that failure is not an end. It is a massive pile of raw material. It is the fuel of hard-won lessons about cash flow, team management, and market fit that they could have learned no other way. That failed venture is not a barrier to future success. It is the essential and often costly tuition required to eventually build something truly lasting and resilient. So, bring to mind one specific obstacle you are facing right now, whether it is a difficult person, a resource constraint, or a personal shortcoming. Now perform this act of mental alchemy. Look directly at that obstacle and ask yourself this challenging question. If this were not a problem to be solved, but fuel to be burned, what specific strength could it help me develop? Could this frustration be building my patience? Could this resistance be strengthening my determination? See if you can visually reimagine its very substance, transforming it from a wall in your path into the wind in your sails. Your relentless pursuit of comfort might be the very thing that makes you fragile. The Stoics proposed a radical counterintuitive practice to build resilience, voluntary discomfort. This is not about seeking pain for its own sake, but about strategically visualizing and even briefly experiencing a state of lack to prove to your own psyche that you can handle it. It is a form of mental vaccination, a controlled exposure to hardship that inoculates you against the paralyzing fear of future loss. By willingly stepping into a minor form of chaos, you demonstrate to yourself that you are far stronger than your circumstances. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus was a powerful advocate for this training. He argued that we should regularly practice living with very little, stating that we must acquire a practice that is the opposite of the life of pleasure. We must habituate ourselves to a simple and sober way of life. This habituation is the key. It transforms the abstract fear of poverty or discomfort into a concrete, manageable reality you have already faced and mastered on your own terms. Think of it like building a muscle. You would not try to lift a heavy weight for the first time on the day you absolutely need to. You train for it. Voluntary discomfort is the same mental and emotional strength training for life's inevitable heavy loads. Simple, safe modern applications are all around us. You could choose to take a cold shower instead of a hot one, focusing not on the shock but on your steady breath and your ability to remain calm within the sensation. You could skip a meal not as a punishment but as a deliberate exercise to observe the feeling of hunger and recognize that it is a temporary sensation you can endure with patience. You could leave your phone at home for an afternoon, proving to yourself that your peace does not depend on constant external stimulation. In each of these small acts, you are not merely enduring discomfort, you are actively visualizing your own capacity to thrive without the very things you often cling to for security. So what one small comfort could you voluntarily set aside this week? Perhaps that second cup of coffee, the heated car seats on a chilly morning, or the habitual scroll through social media before bed. What minor act of chosen discomfort could become your personal training ground for unshakable inner strength? Your mind can wander into territories where you hold no authority, fretting over global politics or a colleague's private opinion. The Stoics addressed this mental sprawl with a powerful visual tool known as the circles of concern. Picture your life as a series of concentric rings. At the very center, in the smallest, most vital circle, lie the things that are truly up to you, your own thoughts, your judgments, your efforts, and your character. The next ring out contains the things you can influence but not fully control, like your family's well-being or the success of a team project you lead. And the vast outer rings encompass everything else, the myriad events and opinions in the world that you can observe but cannot change. The practice is this simple, powerful act of visualization, drawing these circles in your mind or on paper, and consciously pulling your focus back from the noisy outer rings to the quiet, command center within. This is not about ignoring the world, but about practicing mental hygiene, actively cleaning your attention of clutter so you can act effectively where it counts. Epictetus offered a razor-sharp reminder for when we drift into that outer sphere. He said, "It is not things that disturb people, but their judgments about things." And concerning what others think, he noted, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" His point is profound. The opinions of others reside firmly in an outer circle, entirely outside your command, and to invest your energy there is to abandon your own inner citadel. Try this as a tangible exercise the next time you feel overwhelmed by the news cycle or anxious about someone's perception of you. Take a physical piece of paper and draw a small circle in the center. Label it my sphere of control. Now draw a larger circle around it, labeled my sphere of influence. Finally, draw a very large circle around both, labeled the world sphere. Now take your current worries and place them in the appropriate ring. That stressful geopolitical event you are watching, it goes in the outer ring. Your boss's mood today, it likely belongs in the middle ring of influence but not control. Your own preparation for a meeting, however, that sits squarely in the center. The act of physically placing these concerns visually demonstrates how much of your mental energy is being spent on realms where you are essentially powerless. Then practice the mental ritual of consciously letting go of the outer circles, releasing them from your grip as you would a balloon, and returning your full attention to the small, powerful center where your true agency lies. So the next time you feel a wave of anxiety about events far beyond your reach, close your eyes for just 10 seconds, visualize those circles, see your worry, pick it up mentally, and move it to its proper ring. How much lighter might you feel when you stop trying to personally steer the wind and focus entirely on adjusting your own sails? Human cities are loud with confusion, but a forest is quiet with purpose. We often feel our lives are a mess of random events, yet we look at the natural world and see a stunning, silent order. The sun rises without fail, the tides follow the moon. Every seed knows how to become a tree. The ancient Stoics saw this not as a pretty backdrop, but as the ultimate operating manual for a human life. Their most central visualization was this: to see yourself living in full accordance with nature, which they called universal reason. This was not about hiking more often. It was a profound mental shift to view your personal trials, even your deepest losses, as part of a vast, rational, and beautiful cosmic order. Your chaos is not a system error, it is a feature of the system itself. The founder of Stoicism, Zeno, defined the goal of life in one powerful phrase: to live in agreement with nature. His successor, Cleans, expanded this, seeing the entire cosmos as a divine, rational being. To live in accordance with this nature meant to align your own small, human reason with the immense intelligence governing the universe. It means trusting that the same rational source that designed the orbit of planets also designed the path of your life, with all its unexpected turns and difficult seasons. When you fight against what happens to you, you are like a single leaf raging against the river's current. You exhaust yourself in a futile struggle against a force infinitely greater than you. But when you align with it, you find a profound and effortless strength. You can practice this today with a simple yet powerful metaphor. Close your eyes and visualize yourself not as the person struggling in the chaos, but as a single leaf floating on the surface of a vast flowing river. The river is universal nature, the rational order of all things. It has its own direction and power. Your job is not to fight the current, to swim upstream in a desperate attempt to control where the river is going. Your only task is to float, to accept the flow, and to trust that the river knows its way to the sea. The rocks in the river, the sudden whirlpools, the slow, deep sections, these are not personal attacks. They are simply the natural features of the water's journey. When you hit a rock, you don't curse the river, you simply flow around it. This visualization does not make you passive. It makes you profoundly adaptable, resilient, and at peace with a reality you were never meant to command. So bring to mind a current struggle, a source of personal resistance or pain. It could be a strained relationship, a financial worry, or a dream that seems to be fading. Now, for just a moment, try to see this struggle through the lens of universal nature. Can you view it not as a meaningless obstacle, but as a natural, necessary part of your unique life's path, much like a sharp bend in the river that is, against all appearances, still guiding the water toward the ocean? What might this difficulty be preparing you for? What strength is it forcing to the surface that a calmer stretch of water never could? How often do you end your day by consciously reviewing how you lived it? For the ancient Stoics, the day was not truly over until they had performed a final, crucial visualization known as the evening review. This was not a time for beating yourself up over mistakes, but for a calm, honest audit of your own thoughts and actions, a way to measure your progress in the art of living. Picture yourself sitting in a quiet space, mentally rewinding the entire day from morning until night. You walk back through your interactions, your reactions, and your quiet thoughts, holding each one up to the light of Stoic principles. The goal is to identify with clear eyes where you allowed an external event to disturb your inner citadel, and just as importantly, to acknowledge where you managed to stand firm. The Roman philosopher Seneca was a devoted practitioner of this nightly ritual. In his letters, he described his method, writing, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I have done and said. I hide nothing from myself, I pass nothing by." This is the visualization of radical self-honesty, a private court where you are both the witness and the gentle judge. A simple, practical framework makes this powerful. Ask yourself 3 clear questions as you mentally replay the scenes of your day. First, what is one thing I did well today according to Stoic virtue? Did I act with courage in a difficult conversation? Did I practice justice by listening to a colleague with an open mind? Acknowledge this success to reinforce the behavior. Second, where did I let externals disturb my tranquility? Did I get excessively angry in a traffic jam, handing over control of my mood to a line of cars? Did I feel my confidence crumble because of a single piece of critical feedback, placing my self-worth in someone else's hands? Name the specific trigger and the judgment you assign to it. And third, how can I visualize a better response for tomorrow? If you snapped at a family member after a stressful day, do not just regret it. Close your eyes and vividly imagine an alternative scene. See yourself taking a deep breath before speaking, choosing a kinder tone, or calmly explaining your need for a few moments of quiet. This mental rehearsal prepares your mind to choose that wiser path the next time a similar situation arises. Commit to trying this evening visualization for just 3 nights. You do not need hours, just 5 quiet minutes before sleep. Notice if simply knowing you will conduct this review changes how you move through your day. Does it create a subtle, new layer of awareness, a gentle reminder that your actions are being observed by your future, wiser self? What small shifts in your inner peace might you discover by morning? Everything changes, nothing lasts. This is the fundamental rhythm of the universe, a truth the Stoics did not merely acknowledge but actively visualize to build a profound and unshakable peace. They practiced seeing the world not as a collection of solid, permanent objects, but as a river in constant, flowing transformation. By training your mind to observe this relentless flux, you begin to loosen the tight grip of attachment, making the inevitable losses of life feel less like personal catastrophes and more like natural turns in the river's course. Marcus Aurelius directed his focus to this very reality, writing, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." He reminds us that the cosmos itself is a process of endless becoming and dissolving, and our only true struggle is our opinion that things should be otherwise. When you internalize that everything you cherish is on loan from the universe, you can hold it more gently, appreciating its presence without building your entire world upon its fragile existence. Consider a simple, powerful practice. Find a quiet moment and bring to mind something you feel a strong attachment to, perhaps a cherished family heirloom or a deeply valued relationship. Now begin a deliberate mental time lapse. Visualize that heirloom not as it is now, but as the raw materials it once was, a tree growing in a forest or ore deep within the earth. Then project your vision forward, seeing it slowly worn down by time, perhaps becoming tarnished, broken, or eventually turning to dust. If you are visualizing a relationship, see it not as a fixed point, but as a dynamic story that has already changed from its beginning and will continue to transform through distance, growth, or eventual parting. This is not a morbid exercise. It is a cleansing act of aligning your perception with reality. By accepting the natural arc of dissolution, you disarm the future pain of loss, allowing you to invest fully in the beauty of the present without the fear of what may come. So, bring one specific attachment to the front of your mind right now, something whose potential loss causes you a flicker of anxiety. For just the next minute, hold that person, object, or situation in your thoughts and gently trace its entire life cycle, from its origins to its inevitable transformation. Can you feel the subtle shift as you relax your mental grip, exchanging the illusion of permanence for the liberating truth of flow? There is a quiet voice inside you that knows the right path, a whisper of conscience you have likely overruled in a moment of haste or anger. The Stoics gave this inner guide a powerful name and form, the Inner Daemon, and they practiced visualizing it as a separate, wise guardian standing watch over the gates of their mind. This was not a belief in a mystical entity, but a brilliant psychological technique. They were personifying their own highest faculty, their capacity for reason, turning an abstract concept into a tangible ally they could consult. By giving this inner wisdom a face and a presence, they made its counsel harder to ignore, creating a constant guardian for their inner citadel against the corruption of reactive emotion. Epictetus spoke directly to the sacred duty of protecting this core self. He instructed his students, "You are a distinct portion of the essence of God and contain a certain part of Him in yourself. Why then are you ignorant of your noble birth? Why do you not consider the source from which you have sprung?" He was pleading with them to visualize the divine spark of reason within as something that must be kept pure and uninjured by the stains of fear, greed, or vanity. To let your mind be conquered by external chaos is to defile this inner sanctuary. The practice turns this philosophical idea into a moment-by-moment tool. In a situation of intense temptation, say you are offered an unfair advantage that would benefit you but harm others, you do not merely wrestle with the argument in your head. You pause and you visualize turning to your inner daemon. You see this guardian figure, calm and unwavering, standing beside you. You mentally ask for its counsel. What path preserves my integrity? What action aligns with the person I aspire to be? The visualized guardian does not speak in complex philosophy. It simply reflects back the clearest, most virtuous choice your own reason can discern, cutting through the noise of desire or social pressure. Its presence makes the Stoic ideal immediately accessible, so take a quiet moment now to give your own inner daemon a form in your mind's eye. It does not need to be elaborate. It could be a figure of light, a wise elder, a stoic animal, or simply a feeling of immense calm presence. What does your highest self look like when you give it a shape? Now bring a current challenge to this guardian, a small dilemma you are facing. Ask for its perspective. What quiet counsel does it offer when you visualize it looking upon your situation with perfect reason and unwavering virtue? Our world is engineered for distraction, a relentless symphony of pings and notifications that leaves little room for quiet thought. The ancient Stoics saw this constant noise as a pollutant of the mind, and they prescribed a powerful antidote, the deliberate practice of silence. This was not merely the absence of sound, but an active visualization of inner stillness, a mental sanctuary you build and retreat to when the external world becomes too loud. Think of it as constructing a quiet room within your own consciousness, a place where you can close the door on the chaos and simply be with your own thoughts, examining them without the pressure to immediately react. Seneca championed this essential withdrawal in his letters, advising his friend Lucilius to seek periods of deep quiet. He wrote, "You must retreat into yourself as much as possible. Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you are capable of improving. The process is a mutual one. Men learn while they teach." He understood that to engage wisely with the world, you first need to cultivate a space of unbroken peace within it. A simple way to practice this today is to schedule just 5 minutes of intentional silence. Find a physically quiet spot if you can, sit comfortably and close your eyes. Now begin the visualization. In your mind's eye, construct your own room of silence. It might be a simple, plain chamber with thick walls that mute all outside noise. There is no furniture, no decorations, nothing to pull your attention outward. You are simply there, sitting in the center of this quiet space. As thoughts about your day or your worries inevitably arise, do not fight them or engage with them. Instead, visualize them as clouds passing across a still, clear sky. You observe their shape and their movement, but you let them drift by without grabbing onto them or getting swept away. This is not about achieving a blank mind, but about creating distance from your mental chatter, watching it from the calm vantage point of your inner sanctuary. So, where could you carve out a few minutes for this visualized silence today? Could it be during your morning routine before anyone else is awake, in your parked car after work, or simply by turning off all your devices for a brief, sacred interval? Consider this quiet practice not as wasted time, but as the most essential maintenance for the very instrument you use to navigate everything else, your own mind. A heavy backpack filled with jagged rocks is a weight no one would choose to carry for long. Yet this is the exact burden we often shoulder through our own minds, each rock representing a heavy judgment or a false belief about the events in our lives. The Stoics visualized this invisible load with startling clarity, recognizing that chaos and loss are not heavy in themselves. It is the weight of our opinions about them that truly crushes our spirit. Your anxiety about a work deadline is not the deadline itself. It is the judgment that failure would be catastrophic. Your frustration in traffic is not the line of cars. It is the belief that this delay is a personal injustice. The core Stoic insight, articulated perfectly by Epictetus, is that we are disturbed not by things, but by the views which we take of things. The event is neutral until we label it with a story of disaster or offense, a story we then have to carry as if it were an unshakable truth. The practice is to consciously choose to unload that weight. It begins with a simple mental exercise. Bring to mind a specific worry that is troubling you right now. Now visualize it as a physical rock in your hands. Feel its rough texture and its surprising heaviness. Look closely at the label etched into its surface. Is it marked with the words, "This proves I am not good enough," or perhaps "This situation is utterly unacceptable"? Examine that judgment. Is it an undeniable fact, or is it just one possible interpretation, a story you are telling yourself? The moment you recognize the judgment as separate from the event itself, you gain a choice. You can continue to clutch the heavy rock, or you can gently, deliberately place it back on the ground. You are not ignoring the problem. You are simply setting down the exhausting burden of your initial, often irrational, opinion about it. The situation may remain, but the weight you carry is now entirely within your control. So what is the one judgment rock you are carrying today? Is it the belief that a certain person must treat you fairly, or the story that a particular outcome is the only path to your happiness? For just a moment, visualize taking that specific judgment out of your backpack, feeling its weight in your hands, and then consciously setting it down on the path behind you. Notice the immediate sense of relief, the lightness that comes from carrying only the facts of the situation, and not the heavy stone of your opinion about it. What is it that you truly want, and why? This simple question cuts to the heart of a fundamental Stoic truth, that our unchecked desires are the very engine of our inner chaos. The Stoics saw desire not as a simple want, but as a chain of judgments we have yet to examine. They developed a powerful visualization of mental dissection, a practice of taking any burning desire and tracing it back to its source to see if it was built on solid ground or shifting sand. This is not about suppressing your ambitions, but about understanding their true nature, robbing them of their power to control your peace. The goal is to see clearly whether you are chasing a preferred indifferent, something that is merely nice to have but ultimately outside your control, or a true good, which is always an internal state of virtue. The philosopher Epictetus offered a razor-sharp definition of freedom through this lens. He taught that freedom is not the ability to get what you want, but the right not to be subjected to your own frustrated desires. When your happiness depends on securing a specific external outcome, you have willingly handed over the keys to your inner citadel. Your serenity becomes a hostage to fortune. True liberation comes from wanting things in the right way, holding your desires so lightly that their arrival or departure does not dictate your state of mind. Take the common desire for a promotion at work. The initial feeling is a strong pull, a vision of a new title, more money, and greater respect. The Stoic practice is to pause right there and visually dissect this desire. Picture that promotion in your mind. Now begin to ask probing questions. Why do I want this? Is it for the increased status, the approval of my peers, the larger office? All of these are external, fragile things that other people can give or take away. They are preferred indifference. Now probe deeper. Could I want this promotion for a different reason? Is it for the opportunity to lead with greater wisdom and justice, to mentor others, to take on more responsibility with integrity? These are internal goods, aligned with virtue and entirely within your power to cultivate regardless of the final outcome. By visually unpacking the desire this way, you transform it. The promotion itself loses its compulsive power. You can still pursue it with energy, but your core well-being is no longer staked on the result. You are free to act well, regardless of the reward. So bring to mind a single, strong desire you are holding right now. It could be for a relationship, a possession, or a specific life outcome. Now visually unpack it. Ask yourself, what is the core of this want? Is my happiness truly dependent on securing this external thing? Or can I find a way to pursue the virtuous action within the pursuit itself, making my peace independent of the final result? Anxiety lives in the future and regret dwells in the past, but your power exists only in this single, fleeting moment. The Stoics visualize the present as a solid anchor point, a mental refuge you can retreat to when storms of worry or memory threaten to pull you under. This is not a practice of ignoring the past or future, but of consciously pulling your focus back to the only time you can ever truly act or experience, which is right now. By training your attention to rest on the immediate sensory reality around you, you reclaim a profound sense of control from the chaotic realms of what if and if only. Marcus Aurelius offered a direct command for this very practice, writing, "Confine yourself to the present." He instructed himself to stop allowing his mind to be a passive traveler through time, and instead to plant his awareness firmly in the current moment, the only ground where his will could actually operate. You can practice this anchoring right where you are. Begin by simply noticing the weight of your body in your chair. Feel the texture of your clothes against your skin. Now look around and silently name 5 distinct things you can see, not just as objects, but noticing their color, their shape, their placement. A blue pen on the desk, the gentle curve of a lampshade, the subtle grain in the wood of a table. Next, bring your attention to touch. Identify 4 things you can physically feel. The smooth, cool surface of your phone, the soft pressure of your feet inside your shoes, the warmth of your own hands resting in your lap. Then listen. Pick out 3 distinct sounds you can hear: the distant hum of an appliance, the faint rustle of your own breathing, the quiet tick of a clock. This simple sensory inventory is a powerful act of mental relocation. It drags your consciousness out of the abstract turmoil of your thoughts and plants it firmly back into the physical world, the world of the present. Your regrets and anxieties lose their vividness and their grip when you deprive them of your full attention. They are like shadows that only seem solid in the dim light of inattention, but which vanish when you shine the bright, focused beam of your awareness onto the present moment. The next time you feel the familiar pull into worry about a future meeting or the nagging ache of a past mistake, pause for just 60 seconds. Perform this sensory anchor visualization. Root yourself in the undeniable reality of what is right here, right now. What one immediate sensation, when you fully give yourself to it, makes the noise of your mind grow quiet. Courage is not the absence of that cold knot in your stomach, but the decision to move forward while it is still there. The Stoics saw courage as a cardinal virtue, a non-negotiable quality for navigating a chaotic world, and they practiced it through a deliberate mental rehearsal. This visualization is not about magically erasing fear. It is about acknowledging the powerful impression of fear and then consciously overlaying a new image, a vision of yourself taking the correct and virtuous action in spite of it. You learn to see the pounding heart and the shaky hands not as a command to retreat, but as a signal to engage your reason and choose your response. The Stoic philosopher Seneca defined this precise quality when he wrote, "A brave man is not one who does not feel afraid, but one who conquers that fear." True courage happens in that narrow space between the feeling and the action where you reclaim your power. Consider the universal fear of public speaking. The initial impression is a cascade of physical sensations, a dry mouth, trembling hands, and a mind racing with visions of stumbling over words or facing a bored audience. The conventional reaction is to interpret this fear as a command, a signal that you should avoid the situation or simply endure it as a form of torture. The Stoic visualization flips this script. You begin by honestly acknowledging the fear, feeling its full weight. Then you actively construct a parallel reality in your mind. You visualize yourself walking onto the stage, feeling the nervousness, but then taking a calm breath. You see yourself beginning to speak, your voice finding its strength. You picture making eye contact with a single attentive person in the crowd and focusing on delivering your message with clarity and purpose as an act of service to your audience. You are not visualizing a flawless, fear-free performance. You are visualizing the act of courage itself, which is choosing to speak clearly despite the presence of fear. This mental rehearsal does not eliminate the nervousness, but it rewires your relationship to it. The fear becomes a familiar companion on a journey you have already successfully taken in your mind, rather than an ominous barrier blocking your path. So, bring to mind one thing you are currently avoiding because of that familiar knot of fear. It might be a difficult conversation, a creative project you are hesitant to start, or a social event that makes you anxious. Now close your eyes for just a moment and perform this courageous visualization. First, feel the fear, then see yourself taking the very first step of the action you have been avoiding. What does that first act of bravery, however small, look like when you give it form in your mind? A captain does not command the sea, only the helm. Your life is that ship, and the world provides the endless, unpredictable weather. The Stoic ideal of equanimity is this practiced visualization, seeing yourself as that steadfast captain, holding a steady course through gales of emotion and squalls of circumstance without being capsized. Your calm is not determined by the absence of storms, but by your grip on the wheel of your own judgment. External events are the waves, powerful and chaotic, but your internal state is the ship itself, designed for stability and guided by a firm hand. The goal is to navigate, not to calm the ocean, for that is a power you were never given. Epictetus offered a stunningly simple image for this unshakable composure. He said, "Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing against. It stands unmoved, and around it the raging water grows still. You are not the water, tossed and frantic. You are the rock, enduring the impact without surrendering your core stability." This is not a call to become cold or unfeeling, but to become rooted so that your reactions are chosen, not inflicted upon you by the chaos of the moment. When your boss delivers unexpected, harsh criticism, the initial wave of shame and anger is natural. The untrained mind might be swamped by it, leading to a defensive outburst or a day consumed by resentment. But with the visualization of equanimity, you pause. You feel the wave hit, but you see yourself as that captain on the bridge. The storm of the boss's words is real, but your hands remain on the wheel. You can acknowledge the feedback, sift it for useful information, and discard the emotional turbulence, all without letting it sink your entire sense of self-worth. You are steering the ship, not the storm. So think back to a recent emotional squall in your own life, a sudden argument or a piece of bad news that sent you reeling. Replay that moment, but this time insert the captain at the helm. Visualize the waves of feeling crashing against you and see yourself as that unmoved rock or that steady hand guiding the ship. How does that shift in perspective change the quality of your presence in that memory? And what might it protect you from capsizing the next time the skies darken without warning? For the Stoic, there is no such thing as a true obstacle, only opportunity in disguise. Each of the secret visualizations we have explored, from the Premeditation of Evils to the love of fate and the cosmic view from above, are not separate tools. They are different facets of a single, life-altering lens, designed to train your mind to see every single instance of chaos and loss not as a disruption, but as the essential curriculum for building an unshakable character. When you visualize potential failure, you are not being pessimistic. You are attending a private class on courage. When you mentally rise above your problems to see the vastness of the cosmos, you are not escaping reality. You are taking a lesson in humility and perspective, and when you actively embrace a setback as if you had chosen it, you are not surrendering. You are enrolling in a masterclass in resilience. All of these practices converge on one profound truth, that difficulty is the only effective training ground for virtue. Marcus Aurelius synthesized this entire philosophy into one unforgettable line. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Let that idea settle in your mind for a moment. The very thing blocking your path is not a dead end. It is the path itself. The frustration that makes you want to quit is the raw material for your patience. The rejection that stings is the necessary friction to polish your determination. The loss that brings grief is the void that creates space for new wisdom and strength. Think back to the examples we have walked through together. The failed project is not a final verdict, but the fuel for a wiser next attempt. The difficult person is not a punishment, but a sparring partner for your patience and understanding. The personal limitation is not a prison, but the defined walls within which your creativity must learn to flourish. This is the ultimate gift of Stoic visualization, the ability to look at any form of chaos and see not a threat, but a training exercise specifically designed for your growth. So here is a final challenge, a personal experiment for the next 7 days. Look back over these visualizations and choose just one. It could be the simple act of mentally separating what is in your control from what is not each morning. It could be the evening review of your day. It could be the practice of seeing the obstacle as the way. Whatever you choose, commit to applying it with intention for 1 full week. Use it as your default lens for interpreting every minor irritation and every significant challenge that arises. Observe what happens to your inner state when you consistently visualize chaos, not as something to be feared or fought, but as your most demanding and effective teacher. What new strength might you discover when you stop seeing obstacles as interruptions and start recognizing them as the way forward? Your mind is the one thing no external chaos can ever truly touch. Throughout this journey, we have walked through the secret visualizations the ancient Stoics used to fortify that inner space. From the fearless foresight of premeditating evils to the liberating perspective of the view from above, and from the radical acceptance of loving your fate to the daily discipline of guarding your judgments, each technique is a practical tool for reclaiming your peace. These are not abstract philosophies to be debated, but trainable mental skills to be practiced. They transform the raw material of daily anxiety and loss into the unshakable strength of character. The ultimate promise of this practice was captured perfectly by the philosopher Epictetus. He taught that happiness and freedom begin with a single, profound understanding that they are the result of our own judgments, not of external events. Your serenity was never meant to be a prize for when the world behaves itself. It is a state you build from within, one conscious visualization at a time. As you move forward from here, we would love to hear which of these visualizations resonated most deeply with you. Was it the mental rehearsal of facing your fears, or perhaps the simple act of drawing your circles of concern? How do you plan to integrate this single practice into your own life this week? If you found this toolkit valuable and want to continue building your own inner citadel, consider subscribing for more practical Stoic wisdom, and please share your own experiences in the comments below. Your story could be the very thing that helps another person find their way through the storm, building a community of practice where we all grow stronger together.